Do we have any smokers in here?
You have to go upstairs to get it.
Well, Ken's already asked me for a light, so. Of all people, I was not expecting it from him.
He basically told me I looked like I was smoking earlier, so I
Yeah, you look
thought that was
like
a smoking jacket. Just be a little asshole.
He looks like this all the time. He looks like this all the time. Hey, man, you look like you were smoking something else.
that's why I'm here.
That's 40.
Classy.
Yeah, did you put that clause in for 420?
No. Although that's the day I killed my turkey.
Oh, no wonder. He was high.
He was high. Yeah, the turkey was high.
Okay, so it's 6 o'clock, so we're gonna get started because we have a busy schedule this evening, and I know we're gonna have lots of kids that will be coming upstairs later, so. So we are gonna get started with our April 22nd, 2019 work session at 6 o'clock this evening. Goal of the work session is to have the town board receive information on topics of town business. This evening, we're gonna be hearing from Parks, Rec, and Culture Board. Do we have anybody from the public in attendance? Are these folks from the public?
County Health Department.
County Health Department, okay, great. So anyway, who's gonna be leading this off?
Tara.
Tara, okay, so tonight we're gonna be discussing smoking and vaping in parks policy discussion. And Tara, would you like to lead us off?
Absolutely. So late last fall, during one of our Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Board meetings, we spoke with the advisory board on what they would like to talk about for upcoming policies or different things that they would like to focus on throughout the upcoming year for 2019. They all kind of threw out ideas of different policies and such that they were thinking about, and the top one, after they all voted and sent that back to Eric, was a smoking ban in parks, open space, and trails. So we have had a couple staff discussions with pre-cab over the last few months. After that, after getting that direction from pre-cab that they wanted us to look into moving forward with diving into what it would take and different angles with that, we reached out to the Will County Health Department, who had actually been in touch with us a few years ago when we'd approached this subject. It's probably been about 4 or 5 years ago, actually. So we held a team meeting with the health department, and then throughout that team meeting, the consensus came that we wanted to do a survey out to the public. We posted that for 3 weeks on our social media pages with the town and through the Parks, Rec, and Culture Department, and then it also posted it on our webpage. These guys will talk more about the survey results when they get the opportunity. And then after getting the survey results back, Eric and some team members met with Chief Clemick. And then last month, the results of all the meetings was then presented by Eric and the health department to the pre-cab, and they had a work session on that. So kind of our path forward is obviously presenting the results from everything with you guys tonight. Talk about the sample or draft ordinance that you guys received in your packet. And then if we choose to go forward with that, setting a timeline for the rollout and then the education and implementation. So I'm going to now turn it over to the health department folks, Kat, Rachel, and Amanda, and then they are going to talk about the survey.
Great.
So,
Do you want me to? Thank you. Okay, well, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to come and speak with you this evening. Again, my name is Rachel Freeman, and I oversee the tobacco control program at the Will County Health Department. And I'll let my colleague introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I am Kat Venturuso, and I also work in the tobacco control program at the health department.
So as Tara mentioned,
I'm sorry, did you say Catherine?
Catherine, yeah.
Okay.
Catherine, Kat.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So as Tara mentioned, we have actually been doing some technical assistance. That's actually part of our work at the health department through the tobacco control program, is providing some technical assistance on the policy process. And anytime a municipality wants to expand any part of code, we can assist with that work. And so part of that was this survey that I'm about to talk about. And then we also do a lot of education around the issue of tobacco control. So for starters, I'm going to briefly just talk about some vaping basics, just to kind of all get us on the same page with what I'm talking about when I'm referring to electronic smoking devices. And then Kat is actually going to dive into the survey results that came about from the Windsor survey, resident survey on the issue. Okay, so with our, let's see. Oh, looks like we're maybe missing a couple of slides, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's just that one.
Okay, oh, it's just this one, okay, perfect. Good to know. So with our vaping products, these are huge issues for us today. Honestly, Colorado has the highest use rate of vaping and electronic products out of any state in the nation. So that is definitely an issue from a public health standpoint, because it is a concern to see so many young people using these products and think that these products are honestly harmless. Vaping products are not harmless. It's not just simple water vapor. These products are not regulated by the FDA, so honestly we don't really know what is in the product, and so therefore we don't essentially know if it's a lot of nicotine, it could be marijuana, essentially anything you can liquefy you could also use in a vaping product. I brought a couple products with me just to show you these are not mine, so disclaimer. These were actually all confiscated at a high school, and so that's actually where we get a lot of our vaping products from. But these products are very readily available and young people are using them at crazy rates, and so from a public health standpoint, social norming is a really important aspect to a lot of the policy work, and smoke-free expansions, whether it's indoor or outdoor, set a standard and start to set a social norm. And so young people who, are essentially don't see these products used in public spaces, it can contribute to a social norm change in a community, and hopefully young people are less likely to use these products in the future. So that is just one thing that we wanted to kind of get out there and talk about right up front. All right.
So I'm just going to discuss some of the survey results. I know you guys all got a survey report sent out to you as well, which covers all these results a little bit more in detail. So as Tara said, we did the survey in early March. It was up for 2 weeks, and it was posted on Facebook and the Windsor website page, Town Parks and Rec page. It was a 7-question survey, so it was super brief. It probably took 2 minutes to fill out, so it was really nice and quick for all our survey respondents. So in total, we got an absolutely fantastic response. In that 2 weeks, we got over 1,000 surveys, which we were absolutely stoked about. And as you can see, the majority of survey respondents were from Windsor, about 95%. We do acknowledge that most of our survey respondents were also non-tobacco users, about 96% do not use tobacco products, and our age group was mostly between that 30 to 64-year-old age group. Now I know, as I said, that most of our the survey respondents, yes.
Sorry, when you go back to that
Yes.
percent of tobacco, do you
Yes.
have a sense of what percentage of the population uses?
Yes. 9.2%.
Great question.
Yes, you read my mind. 9.2% of the population here in Windsor use cigarettes, e-cigarettes, pipes, or cigars. So we know that our survey response is a little lower than that, but still we just want to acknowledge that a really small percentage of residents here in Windsor actually use tobacco products as well. Okay, so we asked people in the town of Windsor how often they use parks, and it's really cool to see that a lot of people are using the outdoor recreational spaces. About 71% of survey respondents use an parks, trail, or open space about once a week, so that's really cool. We then asked perception around tobacco use in these open spaces. And I know this is a little bit of a busy slide, but you can see about 76% of our survey respondents agreed that kids being exposed to secondhand smoke or vapor is a problem in parks and playgrounds. Another 66% agree that cigarette butt litter is a problem in parks and playgrounds here in Windsor. And then 71% of survey respondents agree that smoking and vaping in parks and playgrounds here in Windsor is a problem. So there's definitely a lot of support around this policy. We then asked survey respondents if they would support a smoking and vaping ban in Windsor, and you can see that 84% of survey respondents were definitely supportive of this ban. You can see in our slide as well, we've got Windsor and non-Windsor residents, not much of a difference in that demographic. We also pulled the results to see how tobacco users supported this ban. And you can see it's not high, but it's not no tobacco users supported this ban. About 26%, about a quarter of those who are tobacco users say, yes, I agree with banning smoking and vaping in parks and playgrounds. So we thought that was interesting. And then we also pulled it to look at different outdoor recreational spaces. So over half of tobacco users said yes, ban in playgrounds. Nearly half of tobacco users agree with a ban in athletics fields, sporting events and bleachers. And then there was a high-ish agreement for rec centres and shelters and picnic areas as well. So we just really wanted to highlight that tobacco users do see value in some of these places banning smoking and vaping. Okay. We also asked survey respondents what outdoor recreational spaces they would support a ban, and some of the really high results were they would support a ban in playgrounds, parks, rec centre campus, public special events, shelters, picnic areas, and athletic fields. So that was between 80 and 89% of survey respondents found that those places were really important to ban smoking and vaping. Only 8% of survey respondents said absolutely no ban. So, and then lastly, we actually asked people to leave a comment if they felt like leaving an additional comment. And we got about nearly 300 extra comments from survey respondents. This was about 28% of the total respondents. Most of our comments were in support. 178 people really support this ban. 61% of comments were conditional support, mostly around designated smoking areas and smoking and vaping, considering the difference between those. And only 34 comments said, no, we don't agree with that. And just to highlight, that's only 3% of the total survey respondents left a comment saying we do not support this ban. Just want to highlight, I know there's a lot of information on your slides, but we have put some of those additional comments into your survey report. But I just want to highlight some of the additional comments in support. Definitely talked a lot about health reasons, talked a lot about healthy social norming, and also talked about the vaping epidemic being a huge problem for our young people. Just an example around like healthy social norms, one comment was, no need to influence minors and introduce them to a damaging behaviour. Take it from a smoker who's been trying to quit. It's not worth it. As I mentioned, some of our conditional support comments really wanted to differentiate between smoking and vaping, and also the importance of maybe having designated smoking areas. So an example for the designated smoking area, this comment talks about her husband, who is a smoker but is respectful, and asks that her husband can still attend the park and play with the kids, but make sure there's a designated area for that. Sorry, my voice is a bit croaky.
Well, there's some water right there.
Thank you. I'm done now. And then the last additional comments was around no support, and honestly most of them revolved around like personal freedoms such as this. I feel that many people who smoke vape are respectful of others. I think it's a violation of human rights to completely ban smoking and vaping in outdoor areas. And then I guess we just had some other comments that we couldn't really categorize. They were a bit random, and so they were just off to the side a little bit. But yeah, so that was survey results. Any questions around that? Yes?
Not so much a survey, but to go back to vaping, you indicated anything that could be liquefied could be used in one of those pipes.
Yep.
Now, and so of course, we're looking at some sort of a nicotine-based substitute for a cigarette, but you mentioned marijuana, for instance. But can you vape just vanilla flavor? I mean,
You could. Yep.
Does anybody do that? Is that?
There are pods, so the liquid containing thing is called a pod and or e-juice, and so you can fill up, like this is a mod, and so you can fill up a cartridge in here. And so there is liquid on the market that there are claims that it is nicotine free. However, again, those pods and the e-liquid and the juice is not regulated by the FDA, so I can't tell you with 100% certainty that there's no nicotine or other substance in that liquid. However, that is something that is on the market, so you'll see 0% nicotine in just the liquid. So.
I'm guessing the sales would be lower.
We have seen studies as well where they've claimed no nicotine, but then testing it, there's nicotine in those.
But not THC. I mean, they couldn't buy that over the counter.
No, not at a head shop. You could purchase it at a marijuana recreational dispensary. Yep. And so, or make your own.
So do you see or have you seen any connection to all this high use of either smoking or vaping related to the marijuana regulations and laws that we have here?
So that's really interesting. It's one of the reasons that we do feel that Colorado has one of the highest youth use rates of these products is our marijuana legalization happened pretty early on in our state. There's another reason why I think it happened as well. We are a test market for the tobacco industry. And so the tobacco industry typically introduces products in Colorado because if it will do well here, it will typically do well in other places in the nation. And so a lot of electronic devices have been introduced on Colorado markets before they have gone nationwide. So Philip Morris tested their electronic product, Mark 10, in Colorado before it was released nationwide. But marijuana is, some believe, a factor in that.
Do you have any statistics on middle school use? You talked about high school use. What about middle school?
We know about middle school use is that the average age of starting to use products, electronic devices or conventional tobacco products is around 12 or 13 years old. So that is the middle school age. So huge concern there, and we are seeing these products being confiscated at middle schools, not only county, but it's a statewide issue and growing. So I don't know the rate.
Yeah, I can't
remember
remember.
the
We
middle
can get
school
that
rate.
information
Yeah.
to you at a Weld County level if you'd like, but
Yeah.
I can't remember the
Yes.
top of my head.
Yeah. Yes.
Is the e-juice and nicotine, non-nicotine substances, are they marketed, branded, approved by the FDA? None of that?
Nope. It is essentially still the wild, wild west in terms of liquid mixing. So you could show up to a vape shop and some vape shops will purchase their liquid from a manufacturer, and those manufacturers will say that they do some rigorous testing and that sort of thing, but it's not from like a federal government regulation level.
So you can legitimately say you don't have a way to prove whether or not there's
Correct.
nicotine in it, because there's no oversight.
There's no government oversight, I should add. There have been some boards and bodies that have popped up since these products have been on the market. In 2007, they were introduced to the U.S. market. And so there are a couple boards that have kind of popped up that do some testing and regulating, but nothing from a federal level, nor are they the companies trying to make that happen. So just as an FYI, yeah.
Do you have the jewel to show people
I
the
do.
ones that are popular with teenagers, how small they are?
Yep.
They charge literally on the USB port.
Yep. So the USB port sticks in here. You can charge it on the, wherever you can stick a USB. This is where the pod just pops in. I can pass this around as well. This is a flavored pod. This is menthol, and then there are a couple other flavors. Mango is a popular one as well. But yeah, if you smell them, you can smell the flavor. But these were confiscated off of a high school, but just so you can take a peek. They're very discreet. Jewels are a little bit harder, although I have seen on the market a couple marijuana companies have developed a jewel pod that will fit into a jewel. And so a lot of business opportunities.
How much
this,
would
but
something like that cost, and how much would pod cost, and how long would it last?
yes, so the Juul retails for like,
You can
Is
get a starter pack, which is the Juul and 4 pods for $49.95, or you can buy 4 pods, like once you need extra pods. 4 pods are $15.95.
And a
That's
pod would last,
It's, well,
you could sit there and smoke a whole pod if you wanted to,
Yeah.
cause there's no dosage regulation with it, so
yeah,
you could do that, which is basically the equivalent of a pack of cigarettes.
yeah, the amount of nicotine in a pod is
Yeah.
the amount of nicotine in a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah. For I think that's true for Juul. I've heard about some are even more potent.
In
Yep.
one sitting?
Yep, you can absolutely get more potent nicotine levels if you wanted to. And that's where you're venturing into a product like the mod, where you would add the liquid, either the nicotine containing liquid or the THC oil. The mods are much more expensive, so this product is gonna be like $50 plus, can even get up into the hundreds of dollars. And so this is a lot more expensive. The Soren is also becoming really popular. And I would say it's starting to kind of almost overtake the Juul in high school, so this is probably what you'll end up seeing high school students using a lot more of. But this one is also very sleek, it's discreet, and the same kind of deal this one has actually a full liquid cartridge on it, so I won't pass that one around because it's kind of sticky. But yeah, you would just pop it off and change out the cartridge as you go through it.
So, do you still have to be 18 though to like buy these in vape shops, everything?
Yep, correct. So 18 to buy it in a vape shop and anywhere in Colorado is 18.
But if you vape, you don't have secondhand, do you?
So that is something that we don't have the breadth of scientific literature, I would say right now, to show the impact like we do with secondhand smoke. The products are a heat, not burn product, so you're not getting the combustion. So I will say that in terms of what is being expelled out into the air, it is not nearly what you're getting from a conventional cigarette. However, we do have a couple of studies to show that there are still nicotine particulates that are being exhaled into the air, and so a couple of studies have shown the impact of just nicotine and how nicotine impacts a bystander. Nicotine does increase heart rate, so it does vasoconstrict, and so there has been a couple of studies that show that there is nicotine effect on individuals who are secondhand inhaling the vapor product. There are also other like heavy metals that are in the product. A lot of folks are, there are some allergies to nicotine, and so it can impact individuals in that way. But I will say it is different, and in full transparency, we don't have the full, picture because these products are still so relatively new. From a science standpoint, we don't have, that definitive Surgeon General's declaration that there's no safe level of this. So just to put that out there, we don't have that for vape products. However, we do have some studies to show that nicotine inhaled is not benign either.
I would say it's not water vapor, like that's what a lot of people say, and a lot of people have said in our survey that, it's just water vapor. It's actually not water vapor that you're breathing out. It is those ultrafine particles, the fine metal particles, the nicotine. So I think it's a bit of a misconception, and it's just educating people that it isn't water vapor. And if I vaped here and now, and then I breathed out, you would find the tables a little sticky.
You can also feel it on this or these products as well.
Yeah, that's the first question I had, is if someone could argue that secondhand vaping is not hazardous, but you're saying there is potential for that.
Yes, short-term
Second
effects,
question,
yes.
Can anyone argue that there is a health, since you put anything into it, is there any medical use of this? I'm assuming there isn't, but I just want to ask.
Yes, so I have heard anecdotally that individuals do use these products for medical marijuana usage, and so to vape the product instead of smoking the product,
Okay.
to achieve the medicinal results that they're after from a medical marijuana standpoint. I've not heard that from like a nicotine.
But they could still do that in their home.
Right, I'm just
Yep.
playing devil's advocate a little bit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm opposed to, but I just want to make
Absolutely.
certain that.
Simple
Because
answer,
I'm
yes.
assuming someone's gonna argue that, hey,
Yes.
it's not secondhand smoke, it's not gonna harm you, so we
Yep.
need to know that.
Yep.
And then I was just wondering if there was other medical uses of,
Like an inhaler?
yeah, like an inhaler. I don't think it is, but I'm just asking.
Not that I know
Okay.
of, and yeah,
Okay.
I've been doing this for about 8 years, and
So I'm gonna
not
guess,
that I've
I'm gonna
seen-
guess that the board's gonna be pretty supportive of this. And so our next phase would be to talk about what, the ordinance? As the component to that, and is Ian gonna deliver that information? Like, what does that look like? What does that mean? And mostly, how's this gonna be then monitored, and, how are we going to make sure that if we create it, that we can do the oversight?
Enforcement.
Enforcement, yeah.
So just to speak to the ordinance that's in your packets, it's still pretty rough. You can see there are red lines in it still, and it's got a watermark on it that says it's a draft. But Eric and I have been bouncing this back and forth. Kim Emel, the town prosecutor, has looked at it as well, because it makes a violation of the code, of this code language, something that winds up in municipal court. So we wanted Kim to see that. She has given it her blessing in terms of how that would play out in front of the judge. So if you're not prepared to dive into the details of the ordinance tonight, then we need to do that at some point before you're asked to vote on it. And if you want to go through it, generally I can do that tonight. We do have some time tonight, so if you're prepared for that.
Lynn, I'd like the
Yeah.
board to discuss a little bit just whether or not they would favor a complete ban, whether you would favor a ban with like limited smoking areas, like parking lots or something, or really just kind of, I think that'll help guide staff more on what this ordinance looks like.
So what you have in front of you is a complete ban with, of course, exceptions. And the big
With
exception.
exceptions.
With
There's
exceptions.
exceptions in there.
And so the big exception is parking lots.
Right.
So if somebody wants to use these products in a town-owned facility like a park, you can't use it in the park, you can't use it on the streets that are internal to the park or the trails, but if you step into the parking lot, you're home safe. So it's not a complete ban, it's a ban with exceptions.
My only concern there is like Boardwalk Park, like during a concert of all the teenagers they already gravitate kind of to the back, then gravitating towards the parking lot. Well,
Yeah, but I think we still can ban it by age, and if, right, and if they're not supposed to have it, they're not supposed to have it,
Right.
and I don't think it matters where you'd have that then.
If you assume the population we're targeting are 18 and older,
Okay.
what Barry's talking about is a separate question, but I think we can address that under existing policy. This says any smoking or vaping in the town-owned recreational areas is unlawful unless you go
And this includes trails and dog park.
So this does not currently include trails, just due to the
Does not.
policing and.
That was the question I had.
Right.
Okay.
It is in the ordinance currently. It says trails.
I thought it was in there.
It
Because
is.
the only exception is parking lots, public streets, public alleys,
I mean, I think,
so.
well, I think all of this that we've heard, it makes perfect sense. We obviously don't want our kids around anything like this, but I also think we have to be reasonable too, and we do know that there are smokers, and just because we have this ordinance doesn't mean people are not going to not smoke. They probably are still gonna try to do it in open spaces anyway, but I think that you can help to prevent that if you allow it, at least in some some areas, in some space.
Yeah, and Chief, I know that you talked to Eric about this, you
Yes.
want to talk a little bit from the PD standpoint?
It will be difficult to us enforce in a lot of ways, but as Eric and I, we discussed, a lot of this will be self-regulating with the patrons in the park. Primarily, we'll respond when there's conflict between those groups. It will allow officers to stop some problems before they escalate. But it will be difficult. It'll be mainly incumbent upon the public to be actively involved in the enforcement of the ordinance.
I think it also it'll give the staff the opportunity to point to a barrier, for example, and say, hey, you can't smoke in this park. And I think most people, 98% probably or more, would be courteous enough to, oh, okay, I didn't know that, and they'll put it out, whether it's a cigarette or vape. I think the police piece really is the last resort. Is if someone just gets belligerent, then staff's not going to get belligerent with them back. It's going to be, hey, okay, I need some assistance. I'm going to call PD, and if they're available, they can come here.
Yeah, I think any of the large public gatherings, concert in the park, we already have police there. I think we'll be able to let police in mass, but most of the stuff, I think that these
Like
guys
our
right, it's
sports
gonna be,
events, yeah.
The soccer ball is gonna be like, excuse me, sir, you can't smoke here, and they'll just kind of go to
You'd be
the.
surprised how many smoke behind a dugout at a baseball game.
Oh,
They leave the stands to
All-
go behind
all-
a dugout.
All the pictured parents, come on.
Is there smoking on the Poudre River Trail? Is that legal?
It is legal, and the reason we didn't include it, even if it was in the ordinance, unless the board is so inclined to add it back, was in the discussion with Rick, was that the police aren't actively patrolling. They patrol our parks. They're not running up and down the Poudre Trail with the number 2.
Well, nor
so
do
it's
we,
harder to.
even if somebody saw you,
Right.
they have better things to be attending to than somebody thinking that they're gonna call the police because they saw somebody, they just passed somebody on the trail smoking.
Absolutely.
I think the message is, we don't want it on the trails either.
And we don't.
And maybe it doesn't get police patrolled, but I don't think we should say, you can't smoke in the park, but head out to the trail and do a little trail walk or something. I don't know, I would still send the message.
Jog and smoke.
I agree,
Yeah.
but the one thing that was discussed at pre-cab was that some of the folks thought it was less of a problem on the trails.
Yeah.
You can get the occasional person maybe closer to town who's walking.
Do we push it for the trails this way? I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought about that a lot, because I looked at the dog park, because generally there's not a big crowd at the dog park. And same thing, the trails. My criteria was where there's a gathering of people that would be affected by it. But I also thought about the safety factor. At times we have pretty dry grass, and I don't know how likely it is that someone's gonna throw a cigarette butt down and start a fire. But I think there's a safety factor here as well as a health factor. So I'm really supportive of trying, well, at least banning it on the trails in Dog Park. And there was another area too, I can't remember what it was. But
Just Fort Collins, speaking of the Poudre, do they ban it on the Poudre River Trail?
I think they have it banned entirely.
So there's sections.
Fort Collins
yeah.
entirely, yeah.
So somebody could do it in King Super's parking lot,
Yeah.
but not do it at Boardwalk Park's parking lot, because that's a town-owned park.
No,
Well,
what
they
we're
do
saying
parking
is,
lot.
in the draft ordinance you have, is that you could do it
In the
in
parking lot.
any of our parking lots,
Yeah.
but nowhere else.
Yeah.
Like they'd have to extinguish it before they
Yeah,
step foot
you
in
could
the
smoke
park.
it in the parking lot, put it out, and then.
Maybe they're
go.
driving all the way there and then put it out and,
Correct.
Yeah, the smoking on the trails is kind of like the dog policy. People don't pick up after the dogs on the trails
Right.
sometimes. Let them off leash, even though it's the rules, we can't enforce it, you know what I mean?
Does our litter ordinance extend to cigarette butts?
This ordinance has a specific litter, has a specific.
I mean, if you're gonna crowd them into the parking lots to smoke, you better have some ashtrays.
Yeah, I think we'd
That'd
want
be
to
a good
designate
idea.
it, make it pretty clear that this is a designated smoking area. So, yeah, have those
stands
cans.
and things, right.
The code language also includes a responsibility of, I signed Shane up for this, post signs that, are conspicuous in these areas, so that it kind of goes to what Rick was talking about, that if, it makes it easier for park staff and law enforcement to enforce it if it's posted everywhere, so it's, so people don't go, geez, I didn't know I couldn't smoke here, when it's pretty obvious you can't.
It says the town manager will post signs.
Yep.
Give her a shot.
Actually, I have Shane out.
That's what I live for on Fridays. Gives me
Post
a
it,
day off.
post it.
No delegation authority.
Or other such designated use.
I saw that too, yeah. That makes sense.
But I was down at like Golden and different, like mostly for girls softball, but, it's getting pretty common, the signage. No smoking, no vaping, they'll have the
And
no
in
no
Gold Base, you can't
marijuana.
smoke downtown. I mean, they've
Yeah.
got a pretty broad no smoking there.
Yeah, so as far as parks, I think if anybody that goes to out of town, we're not the first ones doing this, yeah.
Ian, what's the legal basis for the regulation, if you will? I mean, under the Constitution or our charter, is it just police power, public health?
Police power.
Because I saw the reference to the whereases where it referenced public health, welfare, et cetera, and yet I heard them say that there's no firm evidence that vaping, secondhand vape is dangerous, or
Well, what I also heard was, and that's why I was looking at the recitals while they were speaking, was that there's evidence that the normative behavior and that triggers, there are studies that show that there's a connection between that behavior and other people doing it. And so that becomes the public health issue. There's a recital that refers to the contents of the vape product. So I think we've got that covered from a public health, safety, and welfare point of view.
so right now it references the recreational areas, and it says,
What page are you on, David?
it's page 3, it's page 15 to 20 of the pack.
Okay.
Playing fields, playgrounds, public parks, picnic areas, walking paths, and gardens, swimming pools, skateboard parks. And then other areas that are designated as recreation, so the walking path reference.
So would that be the walking paths like around Boardwalk Park, around like the museum buildings, different paths
So
within
that's not a
parks?
trail.
No, a trail would be more like the ditch number 2 trail, the Twitter trail.
And these would only be related to our town owned. So if a neighborhood or HOA owns some, and they don't choose to honor this for whatever reason, or want to have the signage up, it would not make necessary, or nor would we respond or enforce that or not.
Also least, or if we, so say we're out at Colorado National Sports Park, and say they allow drinking and smoking at their park, but if we're utilizing that facility or power to play facility, our rules for our programs and such still apply when we're
you're there,
leasing or have an agreement with those facilities.
But I think the mayor's point on, I believe Water Valley, for instance, manages their own parks. There's parks in Water Valley that were not deeded over.
Correct.
So technically, this wouldn't apply to them.
Same thing with rain dance, with the exception of if, let's say rain dance said, hey, town, can you come up and do a movie in the park in one of our parks? When we are doing the movie in the park, no one will be allowed to smoke it.
But there was, I got a question about that. HOAs and metro districts are, residential metro districts are within the town limits.
So like
that
Windshire
is-
Park, that will be a town-owned park.
So if we pass an
Amador Park,
ordinance, yeah.
those are metro districts, but they're
Can you vape
town-owned.
and drive a golf cart?
So,
Well, and so we define it, Ken, is owned or operated by the town.
let's go, yeah,
So if we don't own it and we don't operate it, it doesn't apply. That's how we distinguish it.
so the park in Water Valley is owned by,
Water
The district,
Yeah.
and it's operated,
it's,
it's maintained.
it's a private property then,
Private property open to the public.
but it has to be open to the public, right?
Could we approach them and give them the option, say, hey, this is what we're doing if you wanna follow suit? They might
Sure, we
want
could
to.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go back to the HOA board.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think they would be open to that.
Let's say free vaping and smoking in our parks.
While you drive a golf cart, that's what I'm saying. You do it all the way.
Yeah, put that on your sign.
We're gonna put a sign up there that says,
You don't?
I smoked it for the last 2 years.
Well, and I don't think they're gonna, I don't think they're going to see the problem, they feel like they have the problem, because they don't have like maybe
big
the number
special
of
events,
events,
concerts,
of groups of
and
folks
that's
like
the
we do.
distinction. They're
And
within
they don't
the
wanna
town
have to
boundaries,
monitor
but
and
it is a
enforce and go
privately
through that,
owned
yeah.
park. So that's a distinction that was looking for.
So from the application, if we look at this ordinance as drafted, and Ian pointed out the signage requirement, the enforcement requirement, does it call for a significant burden in terms of cost for us to even paint, stripe, signage, et cetera?
So, an example in terms of the board, and it sounds like the board is in favor of doing something. One of the debates that came out of the pre-cab was some of the pre-cab board members wanted us to implement this fast, like before the first concert, June 6th. Staff is of the preference of, let's educate, answer your question, which is how much signage is going to cost. and I'm just throwing a number out there, let's say it's $5,000. We didn't budget for that. So we can add it into next year's budget, get that done, and make something effective like January or February of next year, which also buys us all summer long to educate the public that this is coming.
Right.
And it probably already starts some of that social norming of, hey, sir, you can't smoke at a concert. And they say, well, yeah, you can. Well, yeah, technically you can, but January 1 of next year, it will go away. And that buys us enough time to begin the education process, as well as answer the question, how much is it gonna cost, get the signage done. I know Gulf County's got some funds, hopefully, that can help us with that. So that, you know, but that's staff's
Let's
preference.
have a poster contest at the elementary school.
Yeah, because right now, we don't have that, we have that large of an issue with this problem
We do
anyway,
at
and-
Boardwalk and some.
In the summer,
and-
or
yes.
just in and around specific
And then
events, or just in
specific-
general when the public
I
starts
think it's
coming?
events.
And the lake users.
The beach.
When's our next newsletter coming out?
Fall, but what we will have a digital
We have
edition.
digital
edition will
Not
be
as many
coming.
people see, I was just thinking we could use that as a tool, but
Yeah.
that's not till fall.
Yeah, well, we certainly can talk about it in the fall, though.
Because I was
it's-
more inclined to say sooner is better, but
Can't we
we need
do,
a way to communicate, I'm sorry.
can we do sooner is better and then, you know, just do warnings the first few months? Or is that not, does that not work with police
Yeah.
protocol?
Well, there's no protocol, we have to look at that, Miles. I mean, we would, even if this is passed, we'll go ahead from the educational and enforcement as a last resort, rather than hammering people for some of this behavior. It'd be an educational process.
Right, and I think a lot of the police stuff isn't gonna be, here's a ticket for smoking. It's gonna be, here's a ticket because somebody told you that you can't smoke here and you threw your drink in their face or whatever,
Okay.
you know,
Right.
whatever that reaction was. So I don't see this as being something that, unless somebody's really out of control, it's gonna, I'm sure police are gonna use this just as an education to get people where they need to be.
Have we had to redo signage on account of our alcohol policy?
We actually need to redo all the signs in our parks
We-
currently, so we've put those on hold. That was
So
part
this
of
could
this
be
year's budget, so we
concurrent.
could
That's
put
So we do it all
that in and
together.
change
And
those
no
signs.
smoking, but drink them if you got them.
No, Wade actually has stickers that have been placed on our signs temporarily for the alcohol.
You know, I'm more inclined to say faster, but we can sit here and say that, but the implementation comes down on our staff. So I also need to say,
Well, I think there's just-
our staff recommendation, I think, is really important on how to implement it.
Yeah, I think there's just wisdom in educating the community and letting them know versus it's just coming across.
I think that's a smart approach.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit more friendlier and easier for folks to accept it then when but I think we've used that a couple of times on some different things.
Well, even when we had the rollout of no tents and the
Yep.
limitation of charcoal grills or no charcoal grills in the park, we sign littered that park. Every summer concert, we'd get out there with 20, stake some signs in before every concert, just so everyone was aware. And now, when you go to a concert, if someone has a tent up there, it's almost like the other patrons going, hey, sir, did you know you can't have tents up after 6 o'clock? So they almost
Yes,
police and
yeah,
patrol
you're
each other instead. So I think if we blast it out there and really educate them, I think we'd have better luck.
For our guests from Weld County Health, what's the policy in Greeley and what was their implementation?
So the policy that was passed in Greeley in December includes, it's a very place-based policy. So they did an expansion that includes playgrounds, skate parks, splash parks. They had a couple of things already existing there.
Pools,
Sporting
fields.
Yes, sporting fields. Essentially, it were direct places where young people directly are, but it did not encompass an entire park, trail, or natural areas in the city. So
So ours
it
is
was not
going
all,
beyond.
so it was
Okay.
very place-based.
How about their implementation plan? They passed it
There
in
has
December?
not been one.
Okay,
They passed it in December. It was effective April 1st. There has not been any education done thus far for it. Signage, I'm not even sure if it's been ordered yet. And additionally, there's like a 25-foot perimeter around each of those areas. I'll say it's not what we would consider a best practice.
Thank you.
Well, and we have the advantage now with the concert series happening, rather than making the band, we could have something there every time on spot that says coming in 2020 or something, you know, and there will no longer be in where all the places, so that again, could be.
I think even when we introduce the bands or whatever, have the first person take the stage, just as we're giving out notes, housekeeping notes, and hey, this will be smoke-free environment January 1st next year, and just let people know.
In the past, the town manager's done that.
Well, I'm gonna be, I'm supposed to see pounding the signs in?
We were pounding nails.
Yeah.
And something I want to add, what Rachel said, Greeley already had some no smoking, where we have nothing. We literally have zero policy in terms of base to start from. They had some policy and they've added to it.
Well, I think Christie suggested, I mean, if we want to kind of jumpstart a little bit and make the signs up and then put just effective January 1, 2020, I'll get used to seeing the signs for both policies, alcohol and.
Right, well, and especially if Will County has a little bit of implementation money, since we haven't budgeted it this year, maybe we could, I know they've got like 200 million in the bank.
They do, yeah.
Take them down for.
So great.
I'm just saying you could have something specific made
Right.
that lets people kind of know that you're gonna be there anyway, that could be.
Well, it goes hand in hand with the new drinking ordinance. I mean,
Yeah.
if we don't have correct signage up for that, it's the same thing this summer, because we don't have that.
Right.
The effective date could be in small print too.
And then we can continue to make sure it's put into the communications that we're putting forth to, you know, all of our residents as well, so that we're prepared and they're prepared. So that when you launch the plan, it all comes together, hopefully, well for everybody. You still have people who are gonna be unaware, not notice, because you can't put a sign every 10 feet, you know? You have to space it out, and there are still gonna be people who are going to still try.
But, and then Mayor, I would just ask the board, one more thing, 'cause we've had a lot of discussion on whether or not, like, the Cooter Trail should or should not be smoke-free. I think that, Mr. Wilson actually had a good point, you know, we require dogs to be on leashes to pick up after your dogs everywhere. Even if people are on the trail and they don't do that, you know, we still require it, so, you know, I just don't wanna leave that out there. I'd just like to hear the board discuss whether or not you wanna do it, or we could always go without.
Do what,
and-
include the trail?
Yeah, include the trail, and then I think, you know, even if we don't, if we decide it's a problem in a year or two, we can always amend the ordinance. Or we could include it, and if we decide it's a problem, you know, this thing isn't set in stone, right? So if there's something wrong with it, we could adjust it. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that, because after we get that, I think we could finish up this ordinance, make sure it's clear, and bring it back to you pretty quickly.
It'd be a little odd if you tried to do the Cooter Trail, because then you sort of, if you're on the trail, you presumably could have a cigarette until you hit the border limit of Windsor, and then you'd have to, oh, gee, wait, I can't smoke while I'm in Windsor. But then as you get through Windsor, you then can, I guess I'd want it to be consistent across the trail.
In Fort Collins.
Yeah,
Fort Collins
there's
is
a
banned.
rule now, is there?
It's banned for
Yeah,
policy.
so just Greeley.
Yeah, okay.
Greeley's in the process of
But
implementation.
but do they have anything on their trails too, Greeley? Does it include their trails?
It does not, does not include trails.
So it depends on which direction you go.
Yeah, but in theory though, if you start out in Greeley and you've been walking, riding your bike on that trail, the odds of you being a Windsor and you being a smoker are not that high.
On the first 10 miles of the trail, exactly.
And I was thinking, we're ordering those big digital signs out there in the town. You can just say, welcome to Windsor, no smoking, no drinking, no smiling, no fun.
We allow drinking.
Once you get the trail, you're gonna
I support the trail ban, just initially.
He was a libertarian.
You're harming other people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The only thing about the trail is like when somebody does smoke, I know it's rare, but when someone's hopping along on their bike and they get a whiff of smoke or vape or whatever, that's.
I just would want it to be
Doesn't seem to
uniform
be
the whole way
major.
through, and if Greeley doesn't have it yet, I
I'm
don't know.
okay either way.
But this might force them to do it.
That'd be
Fort
okay
Collins
with it,
does.
okay either way, with the trails. So I don't think it's a huge problem, but if we did it, I think I'd be okay with it.
just playing devil's advocate, for the police department, it is an issue, because what happens is, there's somebody that's gonna call and say, you need to go out and enforce this, and they're gonna get upset because we're not out there enforcing it. Access to the trails is, it's not easy for us, the time delays that takes place, and markings, where they're in and out, become issues. If you put a ban on the trails, we'll deal with it, but there'll probably be some delayed responses, if any response at all.
Well, there are though a lot of parking lots along the way for the clear trail rides. I mean, we put up good signage. Because you're right, whenever somebody complains and says, isn't this against the law, and say, yeah, but we can't really enforce it,
Is that clear?
So we want trails,
No,
we want
that's not
trails
clear.
in or out?
Well, town trails are in, right?
Well,
The question is the Poudre Trail,
Multi-jurisdiction trails.
multi-jurisdictional
Well,
trails.
the only two trails we have are Poudre and Great Western, right?
well, and like number two ditch.
The lake trail.
Boy, and I was thinking number two ditch, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good, like Windsor Lake Trail.
Right.
Like right now, I don't read this saying those are in, or are they? I'm
They
reading
are
more like
in now.
interior paths, like what's the difference between a path and a trail? Like how would we define that?
Go ahead.
Ian's trail.
So we consider like Highland Meadows, the trail all along the Windsor Highlands Trail, and then we have the
Yeah.
Steeplechase, New Liberty
Each
Trail.
isn't
So we have quite a few
it?
that
Yeah.
in and around. And that's how we define it.
But would you define like the trail around Windsor Lake, is that a path or is that
Yeah.
a trail?
We
It's a
consider
trail.
that true.
And
So-
then number two
So would a
ditch.
path be around like Eastman
I
Park?
give the trail that goes through Chimney from the parking lot at the pool
Differentiated.
out to the ball field parking lot. That would be
Let's do this. As staff, let's figure that out.
Yeah.
We could bring, with this first reading, we'll bring a map from the board and we'll color
Okay.
what would be a trail and what would be a path.
Yeah.
And then, cause I've got pretty even split here on what you guys want, so we'll at least give you that information. And then you guys get a vote, and if you wanna add, amend the ordinance and add it or not, we can do
Yeah,
that.
that sounds like a good plan, yeah.
Great.
So we'll bring this back to you then in May, and then we'll have a plan for educating throughout the year at the athletic complexes, and then also throughout our special events throughout the year. And then implement it if it passes in January 2020.
Good, okay,
Appreciate it.
sounds like a great plan, thank you.
Uh,
Thank you all,
Thank
John,
you.
for being here as well, yes.
it's not
Want their
You
contact?
have to do the trails.
Future, did you have anything about future meetings? So no meeting Monday night? Do you have and then our next meeting is May 6th. We do have our advisory board dinner on next Tuesday.
Yes, and that's not, you don't have that, I'm just, we do have advisory boards that
We're losing
Tell David, we're meeting Monday night.
Well, we do have advisory board, next Tuesday at the Red Barn, so I hope everybody's RSVP Crystal. And then, the only change, that's been made here, well, actually, I guess there's a few, we have, rescheduled Bright Futures. They asked for a meeting a couple weeks down the road, and then we have basically filled in, the June schedule now. So, and I think we've gotten into July as well. So you'll see that we're still plugging stuff in here, so if the board has any topics that you'd like to discuss, or you don't think we're getting too quick enough, let me know, because we'll be, January 1st, 2020 before we know it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying this. What happened?
Trying to get your jacket off the chair.
I had accepted to the master plan too. My name's not on there, to the transportation plan, but
Okay,
it's on my calendar, so.
okay. And is this how it was done before? How they showed you guys who had RSVP? Was that, is this how the clerk used to do it? Showing your names in here?
Yes.
Right.
You're saying because you mentioned you wanted to add
Yes,
it
yes,
and then-
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it. Thank you for
Yeah.
doing that.
Okay. So you're saying you had, on June 11th, Mary?
Yes.
And when did you RSVP for that?
I don't know, but it's on my calendar.
Well, no, I'm saying like if you did that before, after we did this packet together, last time she updated it, so I'll get out the note.
She accepted it.
It's just like this is,
Would have been last week sometime, I don't know.
okay, well, I'll make sure Chris will let you down.
Can't even remember.
Yeah.
Too much going on.
I'll be
Too
there
much
as
going
well,
on.
but I don't remember if I RSVP'd or not.
Did our
I-
advisory board items come in
I
yet?
know I'm not
Did she
on the
get
list.
those in yet, do you
But then I
know?
wasn't on the.
I don't know.
Okay,
some
I'll
other-
ask her. I'll ask her tonight.
Whenever it's convenient,
What?
within,
But that's what I need to find out, if they came in and what they came in at, because if they had enough money in the budget, then that's what to do.
And then we also have for the
So you go
Bellevue,
buy your-
so
Or
Ben,
whatever you want to put in
Sosowski,
there.
Jerry Brandmeyer, we've got everybody who's planning on attending that. Okay, awesome.
Because we had so
Are we
much
meeting
per
with?
person, and I don't know what
Are we taking the band in that?
Van or?
Yeah, I think
Actually,
actually Greeley's gonna come
It's
here,
hard for me to
and we're gonna
figure
take
out
the
what
Greeley band.
size,
Or
you
like
know, but I think we ordered some nicer
Right.
bigger ones.
What's
I prefer Kendra to drive us around.
Yeah, I would too.
Just don't let me launch I'm in the back.
You're gonna need to allow smoke.
Well, normally she is our tour driver.
I would say like 8 or 30 days.
I got a ton of space.
Pedal to the metal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Until they ban it.